Hi guys, Adam here with RedArt Technologies. Today we're going to go over a tool that we utilize to line up our machine without datum points. And this tool or method is called ghost passing. And what a ghost pass is when you raise your Z-axis above the engraving area by about 1/4 inch or so, and then run your job. And then following the bit, you line your machine up and square your machine up with the surface area that you're engraving. So a couple of reasons you would use a ghost pass. The main one is if you're coming back to a job and you're missing your datum points. Let's say good time's passed and your tape isn't available where you marked your datum points on your floor. So ghost pass was utilized to line the machine up without the use of datum points. So as you can see here on this floor, we have mostly a pocket path type engraving. Now pocket path engravings are engravings where the machine comes in and cuts out a pocket like what you see here on the floor. Now this type of engraving by itself using a pocket path is very difficult to line up. So what we're going to do is within VCarve, we're going to take our original CRV file that I saved from the original job. Now note that's why we save our CRV files or our job files with every job, is so we can go back and do this. Without that CRV file, you're kind of out of luck. You're going to have to eye it. But with the CRV file, you can do this and line the machine up. So what we're going to do is go in our CRV file and actually profile out this pocket path. So let's go ahead and check this out. So first thing I'm going to do is open up CRV. Okay, with the CRV file open, I'm now going to take the largest part of my engraving. So basically the engraving area in this case is 6 foot square. So the largest area that I think I'm going to get the best kind of profile path out of is the actual compass rose itself. So what we're going to do first is make sure that we're in selector mode. And you can press the click on the left here under Edit Objects to select the selector. Once that's selected, up here in the upper right, you're going to go to your tool paths. So if your tool paths are hidden, you have to take your mouse and hover over the tool paths tab here, and that will become visible. And once you're in tool paths, we'll go ahead and select Profile Tool Path. And with that selected, what we'll do is go ahead and select the vector that we're going to profile. So you'll note here that when I make my selection, the selection will be outlined with a purplish dotted or dashed line. And that indicates the area that I have selected. So I'm going to go back up here to Tool Paths, and I'm going to peg this tool path to my board so it doesn't auto hide on me. And 0.08 inches is fine, and I'm not too concerned with the tooling at this point, but the original tooling is saved in here. So 0.08 inches, that's how far down it's going to go. And let's go ahead and make this profile tool path. So I'm going to name this tool pass Ghost Pass. Okay, and now you'll see that the Ghost Pass is highlighted here in the preview. And finally, since this is a tiled tool path, I'll go ahead and click on the Tile Tool Paths button here. And it's a rail extension tiled tool path. So I set my width at 71 inches. That gives me 1 inch or a 1/2 inch margin on either end of the machine. And then the height I set at 23.5 inches. So I have a 1/4 inch margin on the top and bottom. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room to work with. So that's set. I'm going to select Update Tiles. And finally, while that tool path is enabled, I'm going to save my path. Let me go back here and show you the button I pushed. So that finally I'm going to save my tool path. So this is the Save Tool Path button. And click Save Tool Path. One thing you want to make sure is Output Tiled Tool Paths is selected. And only the tool path that I want to save is also selected here below and highlighted. So we'll save this tool path. And I have a folder with a job name in it already called Compass Rose. And we'll save that tool path. Okay, so next step is we're going to go ahead and we're going to move the machine roughly into place to where I think it's more or less square with the job. So to do that, what we're going to do is find the center of mass of the machine. So as you can see here, I have the machine already in the home position, which is ideal the way you want to have it set up. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pick up the machine here and move it roughly where I originally had it, okay? So that's more or less where I originally had it. So now that I have the machine kind of roughly in place, let me move the camera down so you guys can get a good view of the machine now. Great, now that I have this machine roughly in its kind of squared up just by eye, what I'm going to do is raise the bit about 1/4 inch above the engraving surface. So I'm going to show you how I do that within Mach 3. And then I'm going to zero that out about 1/4 inch above the engraving surface and then run the vector path that we just saved. So you can see here I'm in the middle of the job, so I need to select the appropriate tile number as well to match the job that I'm running, okay? So let's go over here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and open up Mach 3. Okay. Get my recorder going. Okay, now with Mach 3 open, what I'm going to do is raise the bit about 1/4 inch above the surface. So first things first is let's go ahead and find our surface height within the engraving. So to do that, what we're going to do is move this over here, and I'm going to zoom in on this bit down here. I'm actually going to use this area of the engraving as my reference spot. So I like to take the center of the engraving and use that to find my point. Okay? So I'm going to drop the bit down just until I'm just barely above the surface. I'll zero it out. And now I'm going to raise the bit 1/4 inch using the page up button on the keyboard. About 1/4 inch, doesn't have to be perfect. The point is it has to be higher than what your engraving depth is. Okay? So now that's is set. I'm going to go to 0. Okay? And you should see here that we're slightly above the engraving surface. Okay? All right. Okay. So now back to Mach 3. We're going to go ahead and load our G code. All right. And I am going to load the T3, which is the tile 3, and I know that's the middle tile for my job. And now if I select toolpaths at the top, you can see here in a larger view my profile path that we're going to run, okay? So I'll go back to program run, and I am going to reset my feed rate to 100, and we will run the job. So again, I'm going to visually check the bit and make sure that bit is above the engraving surface, okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and start the job. And now you'll see the bit is following the profile path. So you can see I'm a little bit off over there. So let's go ahead and follow that all the way to the end of that star. And at the tip of that star, we're going to get a really good idea of whether this is lined up or not. Okay? That is almost pretty much dead on. I'm about a hair off, so what I like to do is actually line this up starting on one end. So what I'll do is kind of follow it along and kind of tap this end, use a little rubber mallet and tap this end over. Gosh, I almost made this thing just dead on by eyeing it. Let's see, it can actually go a little bit this way. So just give it a little tap there. And it needs to, the whole thing actually needs to go this way a bit. So to do that, you can either have a buddy help you out. I'm just going to give this end a little tap. And I'm following along here. Okay, on this end, I need to move this end. So you can see why I chose a larger area. So that way I can line up this side and I can also line up this side, okay? So this end I need to bring this way. So just give it a little tap. And there we go. I'll zoom in so you guys can see how dead on this actually is here. And that is how we square up a job without using datum points. Now the last thing that I would do here is actually set datum points. And I have two pieces of tape here that I've used before that I have holes marked in them. So what I'm going to do is use these two pieces of tape that I already have bit holes in them, and I'm going to set them down on their respective points. So on Mach 3, I'm going to hit spacebar to pause the job, and I'm going to select go to 0. Okay? So now using these pieces of tape that I already have here, I'm going to go ahead and lower the bit down just above the surface. And I'll put my first one down. Okay, marking that line. And then I'm going to move this bit 70 inches to the right and mark it out at 70 inches. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. I'm also going to rewind my code because I'm done using that. Now, anytime I move my router across the job, I raise my bit. I like to raise it at least 1/4 inch above the job or more. And then while holding down Shift, I'm going to hit the cursor or the arrow keys on the keyboard. And that makes the machine move just a little bit quicker across your engraving area. So that's the speed while not holding down Shift. Now if I hold down Shift and then press the arrow key, see how much faster that moves? Now if I want to make fine adjustments, so 1/1000th of an inch adjustments, you can hold down Control and then press your arrow key. And you can't even perceive that in the video, I'd imagine, but that's how you make those fine adjustments. So as I'm getting closer to 70 inches, I'm going to slow it down, and I'm just going to tap and get all the way over to 70 inches over here. And then right when I'm about at 70 inches, I'll hold down Control and we'll get even more precise with this, okay? So now I'm holding down Control and I'm moving this machine 1/1000th of an inch at a time. And now we're right at 70 inches. So I need to also bring my Y back to 0. You have to be really careful when doing this because you can bump your rails and then you have to reset your 0 if you do that. So I'm going to bring this back to 0. I'll hold down Control. If you're within about 10,000ths of an inch, you're good enough on these, but I'm a little bit OCD, so I like to have these just lined up perfectly. So I do the same thing over here. I'm going to drop my bit a little bit, so that way I get a good precise mark, and I can line this O up, this hole in my tape up with the bit. So now, as you can see, I have both of my datum points set, so that way I don't have to follow that ghost pass again. So that's, guys, that's how you make a ghost pass on a job and line up your machine and square your machine up relative to your job. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us within the Facebook group, shoot us an email, send us a text, whatever you like. We'll get back to you, or give us a call. We'll get back to you and help you out. So thanks for your time, and we'll have more videos coming up soon.